It's time to do the Booktube Real Talk tag. I found out about this tag through the Chronicles of Noria, and I'm going to be linking her video down below. I love her content if you haven't seen it before, and I highly recommend it because she's super funny and she's always pretty real and off the cuff. But starting with question number 1. What's something nobody told you about Booktube before you started your channel? You know, nobody told me anything about Booktube because I didn't really talk to anyone about it before I just went ahead and did it. But if we're talking about like what my expectations are versus the reality, then I think one of the things that's really stymied me is how incredibly hard it can be to get a conversation started in Booktube. We're discussing books, which is a long format. We're often using a long form to do these detailed deep dives into a review or thoughts about themes, all this kind of stuff. And you just don't get a lot of people saying anything back to you in the comments, either to contradict you or agree with you most of the time, which kind of makes me sad because I'd love for the conversation to be more than just like a one-way me giving you a speech. And on top of that, I'm also personally surprised at how important it is to like review and talk about important trending books. Part of what I like about reading is I get to be a little quirky and I get to pick things that are kind of off the beaten path. And I thought like sharing hidden gems with other people would be a fun thing to do. But the truth of the matter is you do have to keep going back into that well of popular, watchable, bingeable content, or no one is ever going to watch what you have put out. And that's not the viewer's fault. I think if you talk to most viewers, you're going to find out that they are looking for that next and different big read, that they would also like to hear about these hidden gems and have like some fun with their favorite booktuber. But the algorithm is such that it takes like certain keywords and certain trending items and keeps pushing it to people. So like the more direct link it is between something else that person is watching and enjoying, the more likely they are to push this thing here, which means talking about in some way, shape, or form what everyone else is talking about at least once in a while. More than I thought I was going to have to get views, to be honest with you. Number 2, what's your opinion on typical booktube videos? So monthly reading wrap-ups or bi-monthly reading wrap-ups make sense to me because it sort of updates viewers on what a person is reading, what their ratings are, and gives you a chance for like a more diverse examination of books. I myself started participating in these monthly reading wrap-ups, and I think it's been good for viewers, but it's also been really good for me to know like once a month I have this planned thing I'm doing. No matter how my content is going or whether I'm stuck or any of that stuff, this video here is on the docket. This is what it'll be, and it's relatively easy to do, which helps a lot like with your churn and burn of content, coming up with ideas, scheduling, all this other stuff that you need to do to make a successful channel. When it comes to TBRs, I think they're a little bit dumb. My opinion of it has changed over time because sometimes I like to know what another booktuber is reading, because if it's also something I have interest in, that means I have an opportunity to kind of like piggyback off of them, and the two of us together can kind of make like a little wave for something lesser known versus like me just reading it on my own and not really getting any traction with it. I also like it for like upcoming releases, not just because I want to read the quote-unquote new thing, but because it means I can look through like my backlist of books and see if I've read anything from that author before, and maybe now's the right time to release content on that. As far as like actual TBRs in my channel, I have tried making them in the past, and even this year I did an update on what's on my TBR based off of all the books I've ever suggested and whether I read them or just have skipped over them or they're still on the TBR. And I don't think I personally get a lot of views on that, which makes sense to me because I don't really understand the TBR content. And I especially don't understand it now in the era of YouTube Shorts, where I feel like the best way to talk about what is on your Kindle Unlimited or what you want to read next is to make a short about it. I have never done a book haul. I've never watched a book haul. I don't like them. I understand if you're doing it as part of a sponsorship group, like make that money. But if it's not about the sponsorship specifically, I think it shows like this consumerism and like focuses on the wrong parts of what I like about books, which I'm here for the story and the content. I'm not here because the book is pretty or aesthetic or to show all the things that I have. In fact, like owning physical books is problematic for me. Owning anything can be problematic for me because I will keep it forever. forever. So it is better for me when it can be digital, and especially something digital that I could return, for me to do it that way. That said, even content I don't watch or consume, I'm a lot more sympathetic towards, because like I can see where if I did book hauls, TBRs, monthly wrap-ups, I'd pretty much have my monthly content ducks all in a row all the time. I could throw in like one deep dive review, maybe one book tag, and I would know exactly what I was doing when I was doing it, and all of it is pretty easy to make. And part of booktubing is uploading consistently and that churn and burn of content, balancing like making videos you really want to make, dealing with something that like is a time-consuming hobby, and then adding to it scripting, filming, recording. Like it just makes it even harder to actually get attention, get views, and keep people engaged with you and what you're doing. So I do see like a lot of these more easy, less interesting to me videos as like filler content that people sort of push out to stay relevant. And I understand it a lot better now that I also make booktube videos than I did as a viewer. Number 3, what was one assumption you had about booktube before you joined, and was it proven correct? Guys, I just have the most confidence in the world, and I assumed that doing booktube would be pretty easy. I figured I had a lot to talk about, it wouldn't be that difficult to adhere to a schedule, making videos was not going to be that hard, and people were just going to like my stuff. When I think about it now, I was just so confident, which I guess good for me, because if I had been unsure, I wouldn't have jumped in and done it, and I've learned so much and I've had a really fun time. But the truth of the matter is I was not just instantly good at making videos. I wasn't good at pacing or scripting, and I have never been good at sticking to a schedule. I do think overall I lucked out because I do have decent camera presence. Like I feel like my eye contact is pretty good. My ability to sort of keep going in a one-take scenario is not awful. And obviously, if you look at my channel, I do have a lot to say, so it's not like I run out of ideas. But there are like a million other steps that go into it and a million other things you need to consider, and I have been slowly getting better at that. My equipment's been improving, my technique is improving, and a little bit it's hard to say which of those two things is more important. I know they keep saying that you can do YouTube on an iPhone and you can do it with no audio and you can do it in any room ever and it's all fine. It's not really that true. At least in my experience, while you can do it that way, getting any kind of views or attention is not going to work if you don't polish a couple of skills first and maybe upgrade your equipment. Number 4. What's something that you've done that's actually helped you grow your audience? Nothing I've done intentionally to grow an audience has actually worked. It's all been accidental. The major thing that's worked for me is just to keep trying and pushing through, producing, to not be afraid to do something new and different, and also to not be afraid to like reach out and call out other people who your video was inspired by, who you got ideas from, to do things other people have done before, but in a way that's different and unique to you, where you're bringing something else to the table to talk about. You know, I definitely did start this channel thinking that views would just happen, but when they didn't, I never stopped making the videos or trying new things, you know? And I've always done my best to focus on me. What am I doing? What could I be doing differently or better or in some kind of other way? What is the format that other people are using? What parts of that could I bring into my presentation that would help me? So I think the most important thing is just to keep doing it and to focus on things that you can control, which, you know, isn't really the views or the subscribers. Number 5, what is one mistake you've seen new booktubers making or that you've made yourself? This is probably just a pet peeve of mine, but I find booktube incredibly slow to get to the point. Intros just ramble forever, and I don't need an entire little la before you get to the point of what the video is doing. I do this too, not just new booktubers, and I see a lot of experienced booktubers doing it as well. This is because booktube is longer form, and we're also very behind the times in what's like trendy in video editing just as a whole. You know, we're people talking to a camera, often talking about books. And I don't think we always take enough time to like clean up the presentation of that to make it immediately engaging and digestible, which, you know, to be honest, you already have to have read the book in most cases to get full appreciation for it. So we're asking for a lot of prep work just to go into the video. You don't have to spend all this time explaining and sort of dithering about before you get to the main topic. And I don't like when people keep like all of their long breaths in and breaths out or long pauses in the final cut. I get that not everyone likes editing. I do think it's just another way you're adding time to what's already a pretty long form discussion. Number 6, what are your thoughts on working with publishers or sponsorships? First of all, I'm talking about this as an outsider because I've never worked with a publisher or any kind of sponsorship, but I do have mixed feelings about it. On one side, I want people to go ahead, get that money, get that bag, enjoy that offer. And on the other side, I am always concerned that it is influencing how they talk about certain things. And not just the sponsored product or the sponsored book, but it makes me wonder if they had acted differently in reviews leading up to this to try and get that sponsorship. We don't talk about it a lot in the bookish world, but I know when you talk about movie reviews and stuff, if you review a movie negatively and you're using footage, you're a lot more likely to get claimed than if you're reviewing the movie positively and using footage as part of your visual medium. And I do believe that's got to carry over some way into the bookish entertainment world, and one way I think you could do that is by not offering sponsorships or arcs to people who negatively review stuff. So that always makes me wonder a little bit if you're getting a lot of sponsorships or if you're receiving a lot of arcs, if you've changed some of your review habits to be more positive overall than maybe you would have been otherwise. And even then, I feel kind of bad about the whole thing in general, because I do think reviewing books is labor and people should be paid for their labor. And you know, these sponsorships, these publication deals that you're potentially getting might be part of that payment. And as long as you're getting paid and still giving your unbiased feedback, I think that's great. I support it. It's just there's not enough transparency for me to know. So I often am left kind of like wondering and like conspiracy theorying over here. Number 7. Do you think Booktube is dying? No, Booktube has always been transforming. I think the change has accelerated since 2021, and we've been seeing a lot more churn and burn than we originally have seen in prior years. And some of that can be attributed to Book Talk, the introduction to YouTube Shorts here on this platform. Some of it can be put up to publishers and booksellers sort of taking these viral moments and making it into a marketing thing. I also think book bans, book challenges we're seeing in libraries, school systems, and sometimes even in bookstores might have a large part of it, because it means that people who like reading certain things have to like justify it, and we're always having to talk about whether or not something is kid friendly and like interacting with children and all this other junk that we didn't usually have to consider or think about. And it has like created rapid change in quite a few people's mindsets regarding books and reading. And all this to me is kind of like compounded by the churn and burn of content, the desire to get people to view or hear what you've said, and then you changing certain elements of how you present it so that you get that message across to the people you want to. We can see all of that at play in Booktube, so the landscape looks a lot different now than it did in 2012 or 2016 even. Or even like, I think if you compare 2024 to 2021, you're going to find very different style videos, and you're going to find very different creators in this space. I do think Booktube churns creators a lot faster than maybe some other niches do. But Book Talk is still here. To me, it's still thriving. We're still having great conversations. I'm still hearing all kinds of interesting book reviews and book critiques, and I think we'll continue to see this for years to come. And that's going to be all of my thoughts on the Book Talk Real Talk tag. If you're a booktuber and you're watching this video, consider yourself tagged. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And if you're a viewer, let me know your one hot take about Booktube in those comments down below. And as always, keep reading.